This is the Philly Phanatic podcast. I'm Parker Grelecki, aka the Philly Phanatic, and with me as always is my broadcast partner,
Dad,
aka Ryan Grelecki. I've got a passion for all things sports. So, on the Philly Phanatic podcast, we'll talk to anyone and everyone from all over the world of sports who will sit still long enough to answer my questions.
that's right. Now, as a result of complications from severe brain damage at birth, unfortunately, Parker will never be able to physically play sports, but that cannot and has never stopped him from loving everything about sports and dreaming of a career in broadcasting. So each of our guests graciously gives of their time on this podcast to invest in Parker's dream and to help him be part of the sports world he loves so dearly.
Now, let's play ball! Welcome back, Fanatic Addicts. Today I would like to introduce you to Mr. Kevin, the Frozen Rope, McAlpin. Let's start off by
What's up, guys?
Tell us, okay, Mr. Frozen Rope. May I call you that? May I call you Mr. Frozen Rope?
Parker, you call me whatever you want. I have heard it all over the years doing radio and TV. Look, I've been
Actually,
called
can I lead in with that?
He's been called worse, right?
Can I lead in with that? How the heck did you get
Sure.
the nickname Frozen Rope?
You know what's funny is that when I started here in 2012, I was on our afternoon show with Chuck and Chernoff. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
happened kind of organically one day where Matt was talking about the Braves game the night before. And he said, Braves are hitting frozen ropes all over the building and had nothing to show for it. And that just happens to be our next guest's nickname. That's what they called him in high school, Kevin McAlpin, the Frozen Rope. And I looked at him and he went, just roll with it. And I did. And here we are 12 years later. We're still rolling with it. So I have no idea how it happened. But sometimes that's how you get those nicknames is just randomly they pop up out of nowhere. And like I said, I've been called way, way worse over the years. So I'll absolutely take it.
So in that game, on that fateful day back in 2012, like the day before the Frozen Rope dubbing, who did they play? I know this is totally irrelevant, but
That's a great question. I truthfully don't remember. I've been in Major League Baseball for 20 years, so you'll have to forgive me if some of the games kind of run together. I don't remember who they were playing. I can tell you they did have Chipper Jones in the lineup because my first year here in Atlanta was Chipper's final season in the Major League. So I don't remember who they were playing, but I've got a funny feeling that Chipper was one of those guys hitting some of those frozen ropes. And knowing his career numbers, I bet he was one of the few guys that actually had a little bit of success on that given night.
It's nice.
so you said you were in Atlanta for 12 years, but you've been doing this for 20 years. Where were you for the previous 8? Where were you the 8 years before you were in Atlanta?
So it goes all the way back to when I grew up in Philadelphia. That's right. I grew up in Philly. And believe it or
So
not,
you were a Phillies fan.
I was a Phillies fan when I was a kid. I couldn't stand the Atlanta Braves, but there's a good reason why, because every time I went to the ballpark, they kicked the Phillies' butts. When I was a kid, I never saw them beat the Braves, with the exception of one year. It was 1993. I was 11 years old. It was the first year I can remember a team that I followed and that I liked actually being pretty good. And they kind of did it out of nowhere. The 93 Phillies were not supposed to be very good. And they surprised a lot of people, got all the way to the World Series into Game 6. And I kind of cringe a little bit when I see that Joe Carter walk-off homer, because that made me, as an 11-year-old, bust out crying in my mom and dad's bedroom, and I went to bed really bummed out. But, it all goes back to when I was in college. I knew I wanted to work in baseball in some way, shape, or form. I just wasn't sure how. I knew that I wanted to be on the air. I knew that I probably had a better chance of doing that on radio than TV, because, as my wife always tells me, this is a face for radio, not for television. So I always wanted to pursue, being behind the mic. And I've always kind of enjoyed, the storytelling that comes with, doing audio medium. It's really easy to go on TV and just the picture speaks for itself on what's happening in a game. It's a lot harder to do that on radio. So I knew I wanted to be in radio somehow. I just needed to find a foot in the door. And I got an internship with the Philadelphia Phillies. That was sort of my first breakthrough of getting a gig in baseball. I was an usher at Veterans Stadium. I would take you to your seats. I would wipe the peanut shells off your seat, and I would take you down there. And I worked that into an internship in the office year round, where I was working in ballpark operations. It was nothing around what I wanted to do, but it was a foot in the door with a Major League Baseball team. Eventually got to know a lot of the radio and TV broadcasters with the Phillies, some of whom I'm still really close with to this day. And they pointed me to a gentleman by the name of Merrill Reese. He has been the Eagles radio play-by-play guy for like 50 some odd years. He's been there forever. If you hear an Eagles memorable highlight on the radio, it's Merrill making that call. He offered me my first job on the air at a small, tiny little AM radio station he had outside of Philadelphia. And he said, I can't pay you, but you can do anything you want. You can do play-by-play. You can host shows. You can be whatever you want to do, you can do it. Worked that into a part-time gig with ESPN Radio in Philly and kind of weaseled my way into covering the Phillies for a couple of years because I had connections with the team. I had been down there a lot over the years, and I knew a lot of people in the front office. So in 2010 and 2011, I was the Phillies reporter for ESPN up there in Philly. And an opportunity to sort of grow that role popped up with the Atlanta Braves and with Braves Radio. And I said to my now wife, she was my fiance. We weren't even married at the time. And I said, what do you think? Pack up and move to Atlanta and give this a whirl. And so we did. And here we are 12 years later, and we have no plans on leaving. You guys are stuck with us at least for a few more years while the contract runs its life through. And hopefully there'll be a few more of those down the road. But it's been a blast, man. It's been incredible. I've gotten to meet so many amazing people and see so many incredible opportunities and experiences. And of course, capped off with the World Series a couple of years back, being in Houston and getting a World Series ring out of it. It's just been an unbelievable journey. And it's one that I hope doesn't end anytime soon because I don't want to have any other job. I don't want to have a real job. I want to just be able to watch baseball every single day. And that's sort of what's got me to this point. So it's been a dream come true so far. And we'll see what happens next. I'm just kind of sitting back and enjoying the ride for now.
So the Philly Phanatic is known to have a soap opera with sideline reporters for the other team. If that's is like that's what the Dodgers announcer TV announcer used once when he was talking about how the Philly Phanatic had a soap opera, if you will, with Miss Alana Rizzo, who was the sideline reporter for said Los Angeles Dodgers. Do you know? Do you agree with me that this Philly Phanatic is somewhat of a ladies' man, I guess a ladies' creature, if you will?
Yeah, a ladies' bird from the Galapagos Islands. Yeah, look, I'll say this: the Philly Phanatic.
Go ahead.
Good.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, the Philly Phanatic, he gets away with murder. He can do whatever he wants to whoever he wants. I think back, and I actually know, and I'll use the term the Philly Phanatic's best friend in air quotes. I've known him for a long, long time. And he has a lot of fun with opposing players. He can pretty much do whatever he wants to whoever he wants. Now, that being said, there's been some guys over the years he's rubbed the wrong way. I go back to the baseball winter meetings. It was 2012. We were in Nashville, and I ended up at a bar with Tommy Lasorda. And we started talking to Tommy, and he invited us to come sit down and have dinner with him. And somehow I brought up the fact Tommy is from outside of Philadelphia. He's from Norristown, which is the same town as Mike Piazza, who you may have heard of, a Hall of Fame catcher.
Mike Piazza, yeah.
So they're from the same town. And so Tommy's, from the Philadelphia area. And somehow I brought up something about the Philly Phanatic. And he might have had one too many glasses of wine that night, or may have been a little over. He went on a tangent about how much he hates the Philly Phanatic. So there have been a few people that the Philly Phanatic has rubbed the wrong way. But yeah, I even got it a few times going back, covering the Braves. I bumped into him in the hallway, and he ripped my polo shirt up over my head so I couldn't see where I was going. So everyone was exposed to me not wearing a shirt for a few minutes underneath the bowels there of Citizens Bank Park. So nobody is safe from Philly Fanatics on a roll.
That's one frisky fanatic. Oh, wait, hold on, wait. He's a bird? He doesn't look anything like a bird. Is he like some sort of like like is he some sort of like bird? Like what kind of bird is he? That baffles the biscuits out of me.
He's a very special and very unique bird with a very long and there have been times over the years, his big snout he's got in front of him. He'll every now and then get a foul ball and he'll throw it up in the air and catch it into his nose. That to me is he's a very multi-talented bird as well.
That's impressive.
Like, he can do it all. Yeah.
Is it true that his nose is literally a noisemaker? The man literally, like, the nose, like, it's, like, I swear it resembles somewhat of, like, have you ever been to a party and they've had those little noisemaker whatchamacallits?
Oh, yeah.
I swear to you that mascot's nose is a friggin' noisemaker.
Yeah.
I don't mean to despair.
He makes all kinds of noises, I'll tell you that. He does all kinds of goofy things. But again, he can get away with when you are one of the oldest mascots and one of the most recognizable mascots, you can get away with a little bit more than some of the newer guys can. So I don't know if Blooper's gotten to that stage just yet, but I'm sure with a lot of time and a lot of work, he'll get to that point down the road too.
So when the Braves designed Blooper, were they trying to get like a Philly Phanatic vibe, or was it like purposeful to have Blooper look like the Philly Phanatic, or was it like completely out of the blue that happened?
I think it was sort of out of the blue. I don't know that there was a real, like, we're going to copy that. I know when Blooper first was born, a lot of folks say, no, it's a ripoff of the Phanatic. I don't necessarily see it that way. Look, I just think that he is you want to talk about a character who gets away with it, man. I'm just hoping that one of these days, I keep inviting him on social media. I keep tweeting him saying, Blooper, bring a 6-pack of beer over after one of these thrilling wins. We'll hang out and talk a little baseball in the studio, but I'm still waiting for him to take me up on it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe it'll happen like at a World Series parade or something. And hopefully that happens this year.
So Mr. McAlpin, where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Haverford High School, just outside of Philadelphia, western suburbs, about 10 miles from downtown Philly. Haverford High School, if you are looking to get into radio or TV, is an unbelievable asset. They actually still have a radio station. We're one of the few high schools in the country that have a high school radio station. Matter of fact, it's the oldest high school radio station in the country. And it was an unbelievable chance for 13, 14, 15-year-old kids to get on the radio and to host a show when you're in high school. And a lot of freshmen in high school didn't get that opportunity. But I kind of was a real pain in the butt to some of the people that were running the place. I said, come on, please, let me on the air. And they finally, I think maybe just to shut me up, said, okay, you can do a show Friday afternoons. And so that's sort of how my love for radio really started, was in high school when I got a chance to be on the air. And it was a great start. And I never would have envisioned here, 20 some odd years later, I'd still be doing it. But yeah, Haverford High School, the home of the Fords. Now, what are the Fords? Well, it's an old Model T Ford from like the 1920s or 30s. It's the big old fashioned car. And that's got to be pretty unique as well. I can't imagine many schools have an old beat up car as a mascot as opposed to an animal, which is what you're used to seeing. But that's what we were, the Haverford Fords there in Delaware County, just outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, and speaking of mascots, I know that the Atlanta Braves mascot BB before Blooper was a baseball a literal baseball by the name of Homer. Whatever happened to good old Homer?
I don't know, but you know what? If you follow anything I do, I hate the New York Mets, and I'm really glad we don't have a mascot that looks just like theirs. So if Homer had to go into retirement and sacrifice for all of us to not have to look at anything that resembles the Mets, I'm okay with that. So I think Homer just rode off into the sunset, kind of like Turner Field did back after the 2016 season, and now you've moved on to Blooper. So it's the evolution. You're always sort of moving on to that next one, and I can tell you, there's not a bigger Brave fan. Maybe maybe he's the second biggest. My 8-year-old son is probably the biggest Braves fan you'll meet. My son Max, Blooper is probably the second biggest Braves fan you'll meet. He's got a long way to go till he surpasses my little dude.
So, okay, where'd you go to college, my friend? Where'd you go to college?
Temple University, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That
Hootie
was
hoo!
that's right. Home of the Owls. That's right.
Go
I was there.
Owls!
That's right. When I was there, we were still a basketball school. We still had John Chaney, the great Hall of Fame coach, 700 plus wins. And really, since I've left, they've become more of a football school than basketball.
Yeah.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we can get back to being more of a basketball powerhouse, but they've got a long way to go. People used to, Temple was the spot to go. When I was a kid, when I was your age, and when I was getting ready for college and everything, like Temple, we were top 25 every single year. Yeah. John Chaney, a big reason why nobody wanted to go to St. Joe's or Villanova. Now Villanova is obviously, with a couple of national titles, has sort of become the spot you want to go play in Philly. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm holding out hope that my Temple Owls can get back to a national prominence, because man, I can tell you this much: nobody wanted to face us in October. Not in October, in March. Nobody wanted to face the Temple Owls in March. We always used to say, "Beware the eyes, not the Ides of March," with the Temple, the owl eyes. But I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. Someday we'll get back to that big stage.
Mr. McAlpin, so you are from Philadelphia. Can I give you a cool little nugget about myself?
Please.
I'm, are you familiar with Children's Miracle Network?
Of course, absolutely.
So a little thing about me, I was born with hydrocephalus, excess fluid on the brain. I was born in Northside, at Northside Hospital, transferred over to CHOA for the surgeries and whatnot. And because of that opportunity, I was blessed to be are you familiar with Ace Hardware?
Yes, absolutely.
I was blessed to be the Ace Hardware All-Star for 2015. And with that opportunity, I was able to meet the doctor himself. No, not Shaquille O'Neal, the Mr. Dr. Julius Irving. You know him, right? You're a Philly kid, so you obviously know who Dr. J is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually met Dr. J in 2012, right after we moved here. My wife and I were living in Sandy Springs. There is a Lifetime Fitness there. Now, I'm not giving away any secrets here, but I've been told Dr. J still frequents that Lifetime Fitness. And I was up shooting basketball the one day, and he was in there with his granddaughter, and I freaked out. I had one of those, again, I'm around athletes, celebrities all the time, and seeing Dr. J, I was like, oh my God, that's Dr. J. So I wanted to be, go get a selfie, but I just settled for go shake his hand, say hello, tell him who I was. And we chatted for a couple of minutes, and it was really cool. I ended up bumping into him at the airport a year later, and we said hello again. And that's my 2 run-ins with Dr. J. But I can tell you this much. My son was born at Northside and CHOA. You are in tremendous hands, as you are well aware. And I got to give a shout out to all the folks over there at both of those hospitals. They are tremendous. Here in Atlanta, we're so lucky. Being from Philly, Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, CHOP, call it. We have CHOA here. It's CHOP there. That took a little getting used to, too, because I kept calling CHOA CHOP, and I was getting confused when we moved here. But, man, I can tell you, you don't need me to tell you. You were in phenomenal hands at both those spots.
Nice. So did you major in broadcasting?
I did. Broadcasting. So everything at Temple is abbreviated. So every major, everything. So I was a BTMM major. What does that mean? It means broadcasting, telecommunications, and mass media. So I could have done radio, TV. The new podcasting world, the new social media world wasn't really around. I was there in 2000 to 2004. I was still editing audio on the big reel-to-reel machines where you had to, when I say cut and paste, you were literally finding it, cutting another part and putting a piece of tape over your audio instead of just going on and highlighting and deleting it. So I learned the old school way. So yeah, I was a broadcasting major. Temple, shout out to my alma mater, one of the best broadcasting communication programs in the country. Syracuse is a really good one. Boston University has a great one. That's where Howard Stern went. Syracuse probably the top of the top. I mean, that's the Rolls Royce of broadcasting major schools. But Temple has always been top 10 in the country. So I definitely got an awesome experience and an awesome opportunity there, and one that I'll always be grateful for.
And isn't Temple University part of the Philly Big Four of colleges and universities?
Close, Big Five.
Because I believe it's close. Temple, Villanova. Who else can you help me out with the other 3? Temple, Villanova.
What state are they in? What state is Temple in? What state is Philadelphia in?
Oh, Pennsylvania. Oh, wait, is it the Philly Big Five or the Pennsylvania Big Five?
It's the Philly Big Five. So you have Villanova, St. Joe's, LaSalle is the one that nobody ever gets.
LaSalle,
Temple, and then Penn, University of Pennsylvania. Those are the five. Now Drexel is right across the street from Penn.
Oh yeah,
and they want to be in this City Six thing. Yeah, but we don't acknowledge the City Six because I'm old school. So it's the Big Five. It'll always be the Big Five. They can try all they want to get into the City Six thing. I'm not having any of it. I'm old school. It's the Big Five, and it will always be the Big Five.
Speaking of Penn University, whose namesake is Mr. William Penn. I don't know how, but for some reason, because of my dad's, side of the family, through my dad's side of the family, I'm related to William Penn. So I guess if I don't make it as a broadcaster, I'll have to be a Quaker.
There's nothing wrong with that. And listen, I thought
that's great.
I knew I was going to be, talking to some greatness here today, but that is legendary stuff being related to Billy Penn, who stands high atop
on the top of the Capitol
City Hall there in Philadelphia. And here's a funny, interesting nugget, Parker, you may or may not know. Back in the day when the Phillies were in the World Series, they put a giant Phillies hat on top of his hat on top of City Hall. That didn't work. Phillies lost the World Series. Then the Flyers tried it with a jersey, a gigantic Flyers jersey, and that didn't work either. So I think we got to just leave Billy.
Stop dressing him.
Is it true that I think I heard it somewhere that at a bar in Philadelphia, people couldn't order drinks unless they have voted unless they have cast an all-star ballot, or is that another city?
I think that was a long time ago. Yeah, I think that was back. I've heard that story.
That was Philly, right? That was Philadelphia?
I believe it was. It sounds like something my hometown would do. Although, at the same time, they'll take your money for whatever you want to give it to them for. So I can't imagine a whole lot of bartenders in Philly turning away money, but I do believe that's something they tried to do a long, long time ago. It would not surprise me at all.
So, when the Eagles beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 52, were you happy because A, you're a Philly kid, and B, that meant the Eagles got revenge on Tom Brady for the Super Bowl that shall not be named. Super Bowl 51, aka the Texas choke. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. I'm glad you didn't mention the score in there as well, because I know that's something that still stings a lot of folks in this town. Believe it or not, Parker, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, but for some reason, I can't even explain why. I'm not even an Eagles fan. It gets way worse than that. I'm actually a Jets fan. Whoa. And I have had a lifetime of losing football. Now, I will say this, Parker, I finally got a real quarterback. I finally got Aaron Rodgers. Now he's 49 years
45.
old version of Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what version shows up. But my kids and my lovely bride got me an Aaron Rodgers jersey for Father's Day. So I finally updated. Nice. The most recent one I have, believe it or not, is a Joe Klecko jersey. Now, Parker, you're probably not familiar with that name, but Dad probably is. He's a Temple University legend, and he's now a Pro Football Hall of Famer, part of the famous New York Sack Exchange, they called him. Their defense was nasty back in the day. So I've upgraded from my Joe Klecko 73 jersey, which will still come out every now and then, to the Aaron Rodgers jersey. So, look, I was happy for family and friends. I was really, really happy for Mom. She's a diehard Eagles fan. I actually lost my dad in 2016. He just missed seeing them win the Super Bowl. So I know that he was probably having himself an old-fashioned up above and celebrating an Eagles victory. So I was happy for the people in my hometown, and I was just glad that a lot of my friends back home didn't end up on the news or in the paper getting arrested by celebrating. They all behaved themselves at both the celebration that Sunday night and also at the parade, which what I'm told was got quite out of hand.
Can I actually – go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
No, you finish. You finish.
He did finish, Parker. Go ahead.
So I was actually fortunate to go to 2 Falcons games in my life. The first one was the Seahawks playoff game at the Georgia Dome, the part of the Super Bowl 51 run, and then the most recent one was it was the game on the 12th of September 2022 at the Benz against the Eagles, and it just so happens that the people sitting behind us, their cousin was Brandon Graham, who was on the Eagles. Do you know a Mr. Brandon Graham?
I do, because it's funny. He is one of the few active players who actually does some media. He actually does some things on Channel 6 Action News, which is the most watched news in Philadelphia. He would do some guests, like Sunday night on their sports wrap-up shows. He would do some things on some of their programs. So yeah, Brandon is a guy. They'll probably build a statue of Brandon Graham someday when he retires. A guy that's meant a lot to that organization over, 15, 16 years he's been there. He's done it a long, long time. He's been a fan favorite. So yes, I'm very well aware of Brandon Graham, and I think that's one of my mom's favorite players. So I'm sure she'll get a kick out of that when I see her and tell her about that one.
I have to ask you, do you know Miss Lauren Jabara from Bally Sports?
I do. Yeah, it's funny. I've seen her a lot on Hawks games. And I met her for the first time probably about a month and a half ago in the Braves clubhouse. I met her for the very first time. She is a great broadcaster. She does a terrific job, and I love the fact she's doing more Braves coverage. So yeah, I know Lauren. I know her a little bit. I don't know her as well as I've known some of the other sideline reporters, but yeah, Lauren does a great job.
Do you think you can get her on the podcast? I would love to have her on the show.
Why is that, Parker?
She's kind of a fox, if you know what I mean.
Hey, don't tell my wife, but kind of. I don't know. I think you're underselling it here, Parker. No,
hard-hitting journalism.
There you go. Hey, Parker, I'll put a good word in for you next time I see her. How's that?
Do you know anyone that knows her directly? Maybe.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people.
So maybe you put in the word to them, and they can tell LJ. Sorry.
Is that what you tell her, LJ? Oh, look at you. You already got a look at you're starting to blush. That's Parker.
That's what Trevor Scales calls her. And yes, am I blushing? Oh no!
Turn around there, Parker.
Someone can we save the? Oh my God! Oh no! Well, this just went somewhere. I'm literally blushing over.
Parker, how old are you?
14. But I tell you what.
For you.
No, come on. Oh no. Okay, can someone save this podcast so we can? Oh,
yeah, Parker. Maybe let me jump in while you get your composure and your color back here. Hold on. Kevin, maybe I'll try to make this somewhat helpful here. In your career, you've done a lot of amazing things, and just really been blessed to have an awesome opportunity. But you've created a lot of those, obviously. What sort of advice do you have? This is why we're doing this, is to help Parker sort of just build his professional chops, because this is something that he wants to do. But for anybody else who's listening, what advice do you have for folks who want to get into broadcasting?
Well, first and foremost, don't let anybody tell you you're not qualified or you can't do it.
Nice.
You show them, you prove them wrong. It's a really, really competitive industry. I'll tell you that. Going back to when I first got my start, I kind of always wanted to do play-by-play. I thought maybe I would be the next Vin Scully or Harry Callis. But you quickly realize in this industry, guys, there are 60 number one play-by-play roles in Major League Baseball in the world.
Wow.
One on TV, one on radio for 30 teams. So there's 60 jobs on the planet that exist. Wow. So landing one of those is pretty tough. Now, that being said, there's no reason why you can't. You work hard. And for me, I tell kids all the time, whether they're high school or college or just out of college, and hey, how do I get my feet wet? Just be willing to separate yourself from the competition. There's going to be, I used to go to the baseball winter meetings every year, and I would see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids coming out of the job fair. They all had their brand new suit on. Heck, some of them still had their little tags on the back. They just got them from the dry cleaner. I mean, it was, fresh out of college trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do with my life? It's overwhelming. It's tough. But the good thing is, guys, there's so many different avenues to get your feet wet, to learn the business, to meet people, to network. That's a big part of it, is networking and just, having a chance to talk to people like we're doing today. I think this is awesome that you're getting involved in this, Parker, at 14 years old. This is great. But whatever it is, whether it's an internship, I see kids all the time in our studios at 680 The Fan, and there's a lot of them. And I'm not, casting a broad brush here, but there's a lot of interns in general that just want to do the bare minimum. They just want to get by. They just want to do what they're told. There's others that I've seen that will go, hey, I'm going to go record a podcast. I'm going to go grab a video camera and interview people in the Battery. I'm going to go over to the ballpark tonight and cover the game and show that I have more of a drive, more of a desire than other people. That's sort of how I handled it. That's sort of what my mentality was. I wanted to stand out from the pack. I took a couple of jobs when I first started in radio. I wasn't even getting paid. I was collecting unemployment because it was what I wanted to do. And I had a dream and I had a drive that, okay, this is going to work out someday. Did I ever envision I'd be hosting the pre and post game show on the largest radio network in sports? Never in my wildest dreams. Did I ever envision that I'd be flying on a charter plane with a major league team and staying in Ritz-Carltons and, getting to live the life of a big leaguer minus the paycheck? No, I never did. But what I'm getting at is, don't let anybody tell you no. Don't let anybody tell you you're not qualified. Prove them wrong. I tell people that all the time. I feel like that's kind of what I did. That's kind of, sacrifices you're going to make along the way. It's tough early on. Like I said, there's a lot of competition, but there's also a lot of people that just feel maybe a sense of entitlement or feel like, hey, I can do that and I don't need to work hard for it. And believe me, that's not the case when it comes to broadcasting, radio, TV, whatever it might be, digital. You really need to show that you have that work ethic. You have that desire and that drive. And Parker, by doing this, man, I think this is phenomenal. This is an awesome. I wish they had this kind of stuff when I was a kid. When I was first trying to teach myself how to be a radio play-by-play guy, this sounds ridiculous now, but I would go put on Madden on my PlayStation 2, and I would put it on the demo mode, and I would sit there and call the game like I was watching a game on TV, just to try to get reps doing play-by-play. So I think that, again, if you prove that you're not just like, that mass of kids coming out of college and that they think that they're going to be the next play-by-play guy, be willing to adapt, be willing to take on new challenges and know that, you work hard, good things are going to happen. It will happen. You network, you meet the right people, they'll give you your foot in the door, and then, you'll pass that on, like I do. I think about being a 19 and 20-year-old, having no clue what I was going to do for my life. And I had some, really good announcers take me under their wing and give me advice and put me in touch with others and network. And now I'm sort of doing the same, even though I'm not nearly as qualified as they were. It's fun for me to do that. So you sort of kind of just pass the baton to the next, the next wave, if you will, the next generation. And Parker, you keep doing this, man. People are going to be hitting you up to go on their podcast someday down the road. I've got all the belief in that for certain.
Mr. McAlpin, you've got to tell us about that World Series ring, my man. Do you mind?
You want to see it?
Yes.
All right, hold on. I should have brought it out earlier. Hang on.
Okay.
Let me get it. Sorry, I should have had this ready. I apologize. All right, so this is the first box I was handed. Can you see that with the glare? It's a big box. It says World Series champions on it. Okay. Yeah. All right, so you open that up. Then there's another box. It's like a box inside. I was like, where is the ring? All right, so I'm going to hold this up so you can see it, and then I'll take it out. Give me 1 second here. Take that out. All right, so this is the actual box that the ring comes in. Can we see that?
And that's
the wood.
And there she is.
That's nice. That is sweet.
And that's the
granddaddy. And then you open it up, and it's got this fancy little light that comes on, and it lights it up. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Holy!
Right, so let me break it out for you so you can actually see it. And when I put it on my finger, it's ridiculous. Like, it is like absurdly big. Like, you can't type.
Have you ever worn it anywhere? Is there any event you've ever gone to where like, I'm gonna wear this thing, like non-sports related, where like I'm just gonna show up and show out with this thing?
I actually officiated a buddy's wedding back in March. He actually works for the Braves. So he said, "Hey, bring your ring. All the people from the team are going to wear theirs, and we'll all get a photo op, all of us wearing it." So I don't break it out often, but what I do is I take it to my son. My son plays baseball. He's 8 years old, plays at Eastside here in Marietta. And every year, I'm an assistant coach. I would love to be a head coach, but with my schedule, it just doesn't work out. But every year and every season, I take it and surprise the kids after a game and let them all wear it and get pictures with it. And, I don't know who loves it more, the dads or the kids. But Parker, this to me is the coolest part. Can you see that right there? It's got my name engraved on it on the side there.
Oh man, that is cool.
Yeah. So it's 20 years of never imagining that I would ever have an opportunity to get one of these. But I was there in Houston when we won it. I was there at the after party, which I can tell you, I've been to some cool parties. I've done a lot of cool things over the years. The after party when we won the World Series, that's one I'll tell my grandkids and hopefully someday great grandkids about. That was an all timer. So when I found out I was getting the ring, it's funny. You'll appreciate this, guys. I got called into the boss's office. It was January of last year, so January of 22, and it's the off season. I don't have a whole lot of responsibility in the off season. He calls me in. He says, "Close the door," and I'm thinking,
Eesh.
It's either something I did or didn't do, and I wasn't sure which it was, which I would be in more trouble for, if something I did or didn't do. And he hands me this envelope and says, "Congratulations, you're getting a World Series ring." And I kind of looked around like, where's the hidden camera? You guys are messing with me now. And so there was this paperwork in there. And what's crazy, and Dad will probably appreciate this more, Parker, than you will. Your high school, your college rings. Did you ever get a ring from Justin's? Yep. That's who makes World Series rings and Super Bowl rings. It's crazy that the same company. We got those little high school and college rings that I don't even know where mine are. They're in a box somewhere in our house. But yeah, so they're the same company that makes championship rings. And this one is a little bit fancier than the one when I graduated. Better than the one I got. Yeah. But real funny side story to that. I had a professor at Temple who was a public relations teacher. And part-time, he did some consulting work for the Philadelphia Phillies. And he said he got a ring in 1980 when they won it. And I said, "Did you ever wear it?" And he goes, "Well, I would wear it to my class reunions. And I would be as obnoxious as possible, where I would get my glass of wine and I would sort of tap it against there and make that tapping sound as to kind of draw attention to it. And people that used to be mean to me or weren't friends with me or didn't want anything to do with me in high school would go like, what is that?" And he'd go, "Oh, this thing, that's my World Series. You guys don't have one? Like you didn't get one of these?" So he would sort of flaunt it a little bit and have some fun at the expense of folks who maybe weren't as nice to him as a younger kid. So yeah, it's awesome. I do break it out for very special occasions, for the little leaguers to try on. But really, it's something that I keep kind of closed away. And I'll tell you this much, Parker, if I'm having a bad day, I break it out and I look at it and I just sort of stare at it for a little while and go, you know what? This ain't so bad. Yeah. So it's now all I need, I got 2 kids and I already told Max he's getting this one. And now I need one for my daughter, and they can fight over it long after I'm gone. That'll be a problem. But to put this in perspective, what this means to me, Ben Ingram, who has been a very good friend of mine since really day one I took this job, Ben said, think about this. 100 years from now, we'll all be long gone. Your great grandkids are going to take this World Series ring to their first grade show and tell someday, and they're going to tell them about their great grandpappy that was a World Series announcer. And think about how cool that is, that it's something that will, kind of stay in your family for generations to come. And I think that to me makes it cooler than any other part. And there's a lot of cool parts to it, but that's probably the most unique part of it, is knowing that it'll stay in our family, hopefully for a long time. Hopefully my son doesn't, sell it to pay off a gambling or something down the road. Hopefully it doesn't end up in a pawn shop somewhere.
That's right.
I actually have a replica World Series ring that was given to me by someone very special, someone at my school, Miss Courtney.
Nice.
Miss Courtney is her name. Courtney Crowdis. She's an A-list member.
You're not turning red when you're talking about Courtney like you did with Lauren. I just noticed that. So.
Sorry, it's astute observation there.
Yes, sorry.
Here it comes again. Here it comes, Parker.
What can I
Watch
say?
out now.
Well, what can I say, man? I mean, Lauren, she's something, all right. I'll tell you that.
Parker, she's got the face for TV. I have the face for radio.
There it is again. Yes.
That, okay?
There it is.
Can I break into a sponsorship moment for a minute?
Please.
Do you like barbecue, my man? Do you like barbecue? Does anyone here like barbecue? I don't
know where this is going.
I'm not really a barbecue guy, but we have to give a shout out to our friends over at Righteous Q. Check them out.
In East Cobb, Marietta.
Can I add on to that, Parker?
Please do.
Sure. You're the guest, man.
12:15 on a Friday, you'll see me in there eating a brisket burger. That is my spot every Friday. Patrick and his crew, they are awesome. And also, hey,
Verzone.
Patrick Verzone. Oh my, yes. His son is on my brother's football team. He's
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, they're amazing. By the way, their smoked wings, pretty good. And for all the dads out there, they now have cold beer. So what goes better with barbecue than an ice cold tall boy? That, to me, Patrick stepped up his game, Parker, and Righteous Q is the best in the area. They catered my 40th birthday party last year. So nice. I still have people talking about how much they enjoyed that one. So yeah, Righteous Q is the best, man.
Oh, Mr. McAlpin, I totally forgot to ask earlier in the show. What is number one on your bucket list of sporting events?
Good question, because, I crossed one of them off this year. I was invited to go to the Masters this year for the first time, which usually doesn't work out because of my baseball schedule. We're just starting the season. But when I went to my boss and I said, hey, I got a neighbor, he goes every year, I was invited to go. He's like, yes, we'll find us someone to cover you. Yes. And of course, my first experience at the Masters was Saturday this year. I don't know if you remember, it was like 45 degrees and raining sideways. But I did get a chance to see some of the top golfers up close. It was really, really cool. So bucket list for me, you know what? Probably Kentucky Derby. My birthday is May 5th. And every, I guess, 10, 11 years, the Derby actually falls on Saturday, May the 5th on my actual birthday. So I've told my wife at some point, we need to go to the Kentucky Derby. I got friends that live up there, not too far away from Churchill. I've been to Churchill Downs. I just haven't been there for the Derby. So I think Kentucky Derby would probably be the one. Put on the tux, have my wife wear the super big hat, be all fancy, and spend way too much money on those mint juleps out there at the track, and just have a little bit of fun. So I'll go Kentucky Derby, Parker. It's a great question, because I did just cross one of them off this year in the Masters. That was on the list for a long time, and fingers crossed, my buddy Harvey will invite me to go again with him sometime down the road.
Okay, so on this podcast, we are all sports fanatics. So the last question we ask to all of our guests, as a fan, what do you think is the all-time greatest moment in sports?
All-time greatest moment. Boy, you're putting me totally on the spot here, Parker. I'll say probably one of the best is from the Olympics, when Team USA beat the Russians, and was the miracle on ice. Probably one of the greatest moments, because it wasn't just one team, one city, one fan base. It brought a country together, and I think it brought the world together. Everyone was sort of rooting for the U.S. in that one. So I'll say the miracle on ice is probably one of the greatest calls of all time. I'll go with that one. I'd have to sit back and think about, look, there's been so many, but I think when you talk about a global event, to me, that probably carries more weight than just a team or a city or a state celebrating something. So I'll go with the miracle on ice. I think that would probably be the one that, at least off the top of my head, sticks out the most.
Parker, you have to tell him your connection to the miracle on ice.
I actually know. Do you remember Mike Ruzioni and Jack O'Callahan from said Miracle on Ice?
I don't know him, but it sounds like you probably do.
Do you know but you remember them from the team, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I actually, like I said, like through Ace Hardware, I got to every year they have their like pro-am golf tournament in Hawaii.
Yep.
In 2018, I was fortunate enough to go, and team hockey was Mike Ruzioni and Jack O'Callahan. So yeah, that's how I know them.
Parker actually kissed O'Callahan's bald head in the pool.
What? No, I didn't.
Yes,
now you're just telling stories.
Yes, you did.
Hey, now you're just telling stories, buddy boy.
Yeah, I know. Here's how I remember it. Because I'm sitting on the side of the pool. Here's my moment with Mark Bulger. And some lady confuses me for Mark Bulger. And I was like, this is as good as it's ever going to get for me right there. And then Parker's over there sitting on the side of the pool. And he's just talking to Jack O'Callahan. And Parker grabs his head and just kisses him on the top of his bald head.
You said that was Mike Ruzioni.
No. Jack O'Callahan. It was Jack O'Callahan.
And Jack O'Callahan, I don't think he's bald. No, he was not bald.
Close.
Okay.
So listen to this. So you're going to Hawaii and hanging out with, gold medalists, and you're related to William Penn. I mean, like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into here today. Parker, man, you're a legend, dude. This is great.
He went downhill after William Penn.
Hey, watch it, buddy boy.
Parker, you're bringing it back up.
Hey, watch it, pal. All
I
right,
was giving you props,
thank
man.
you, Mr. McAlpin. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. McAlpin. And to the listeners, don't forget to check us out everywhere you find your podcasts. So,
Thanks, guys.
See you later, Fanatic Addicts.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye. All right, Fanatics. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Fan and Fanatic. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all of your support. Don't forget to follow or subscribe, or whatever your podcast app says to do. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For my broadcast partner, Ryan Grelecki, this is Parker Grelecki saying, Game, Set, Match!